So welcome everyone to the meeting of the Richmond Planning Commission for Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. Looks like we have a quorum of commissioners, myself, Allison, Anand, Ian Bender, Chris Granda. Great. And we have Keith, our Director of Planning and Zoning, and also MMCTV, Tom Astley. Thank you all very much. So we're going to start right off with reviewing the agenda. And if there's any public comment on non-agenda items, they can be heard here also. The agenda basically has two items. The first half of the meeting, we're going to continue our discussion on the PUD question that we raised last time. And then we're going to talk about the town plan work, especially in relationship to the future land use map that the CCRPC has put out their second draft, which is not very much different. It's somewhat different from the previous one, but we're going to talk about that. So anybody have any other changes? Then we can talk about anything else at the end under other business. Okay, not hearing any changes or additions, we will continue with the agenda as it was posted. Okay, next up, reviewing the minutes of the July 16th meeting. Any corrections or additions or changes you all want to make to the minutes of our last meeting? Okay, not hearing any or seeing any hands, we will accept the minutes as written into the record. Okay, so we're going to talk some more about the PUD revisions, brought about primarily from the fact that there were ambiguous and or conflicting statements relating to whether or not fully residential PUDs should be allowed in the commercial district, the village commercial district, and the IC district. In one place it said they could be allowed, and in another it said that in all of those districts commercial had to be on the first floor, which of course would cut out a fully residential PUD. So we talked about different strategies that we might use to fix that. And I would like to, after thinking about it and looking at some other ordinances, make the argument that Chris kind of had last time, that there's just one thing that's a PUD. There is a PUD, and whatever uses it has in it, we can talk about, but they're all essentially the same thing. So I would like to cut out the use of the term residential PUD, which does not seem to occur in other ordinances. If we want to talk about a PUD that has only residences in it, we can just say it's a PUD, it has only residences. We can mark that as what I'm calling a call out that is special. But in general, there's this thing that's called a PUD. It allows for certain dimensional dimensional requirements to be waived or adjusted. And in general, PUDs abide by the residential density of the district in which they're located and the uses in the district in which they're located. So if you have a district, for instance, like the Village Residential North District, where the uses are only residential, you're only going to be able to have PUDs that have residential uses. So you're defaulting to the normal setup. It's a PUD, It can use the uses that are defined in the district. It abides by the residential density. If you have a district like the Village Residential Commercial District, where you have lots of residential uses, single family homes, double, duplex, whatever. You also have lots of commercial districts. In that district, we already say in our ordinance that you can have either a PUD that consists only of residences, a PUD that consists of commercial, or one that is mixed with residential and commercial uses. So that, unless we want to make it special in some way, also defaults to the fact that the PUD in that district can use any of the uses that are allowed in that district. So I think, my feeling is, we can talk about it obviously, but this is a much more simple way of having a PUD section, is to just call out any place where we want to have a special situation, which does not just default to whatever uses are in the district. And I did make a short list, which isn't that long, of the ones that we already have, and ones where we would want to talk about it. We can still talk about what special, which districts we would like to have special requirements. So for instance, in our Village Commercial District, right now, we have a requirement that 50% must be commercial. And we don't really have any dwelling uses. We don't have any residential uses in the use list. So if we want to allow anything other than a fully commercial PUD, we would have to change something about the way this is written. Right now, in the Village Commercial, it says you can have a fully residential or a PUD that contains only residences. It says you can have one, but we don't have any residences listed, any residential uses listed in our use list. So let's say we talked about it with the players in these districts, and they decided that they were fine with a mixed use PUD, which our ordinance currently allows. Then we would have to add a dwelling unit in a PUD. We would have to put that on our uses list in the district. If they decided they did not want to have a PUD that has only residential uses, then in our call out section, we would continue to say 50% must be in commercial, or commercial on the first floor, or however we wanted to say that. We would still have to have dwelling unit in our use list, because in a mixed PUD with commercial on the ground floor, you could have residential uses on the upper floors. So I guess we could start there in talking about that general concept. I think it is cumbersome and different from other places to actually define 3 different types of PUD. We should just have the one type of PUD, and then we should just say which uses are going to be allowed. If it's different from what the uses are in the district, then we would have it in the special call-out section. So does anyone want to comment about that? It still gives us plenty of room to talk about which districts we want to be special, if we want them to be special. But it takes away this question of a residential PUD being a thing. It's not a thing. It's just, there's a thing that's a PUD. And then if you want to talk about what the uses are in it, that's fine. You can talk about what the uses are. Usually they're the uses in the district.
Well, this makes sense to me. And I think you've thought it through much more carefully than I did, because I was just sort of doing it off the top of my head. But But yeah, I mean, I think you've said exactly what I was trying to say about it, and it makes sense. I mean, I try and think about it in terms of what do we want to see? You know,
Mhm.
what we did in Jelena Court, so far anyway, is said, okay, we want to see commercial at the street level on the street, but the
Mhm.
rest can be residential. And my guess would be that which is what the rest of that district pretty much is, you know, would be acceptable to the folks that live there or have businesses there already. And I think it would enhance the town too if we had more buildings of that sort, you know, build out that mode in that district. So as long as what we're talking about will do that or allow that, I think it
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, so what the situation would be for the Jolena Court District. In the Jolena Court District, there are residential uses and there are commercial uses. So the default would be any building can use, any PUD can use any of those uses anyhow they want. But there is a small call out that we're putting in our call out section of the PUD, which says 20% of the building that faces directly onto Bridge Street must remain in commercial use. That's the call out for that district. Otherwise, go ahead and use any of these uses in any combination that you want in a PUD. It is already a PUD. So that's how that one would work.
I think it's less complicated than, you
Yeah,
know, chopping it all up. Yeah.
it's less complicated. You don't need all those definitions. You don't, you know, it was a little mind boggling to do it a different way. So anyway, if people are okay with that framework, then we can still talk about which districts we would like to have a call out, like the Jolena Court District. We have this little call out. It's in section 5.12.8E, which is the section that has got the call outs. So I think that should be in your packet. Maybe you could put that up. It's pretty short. I mean, most of the districts using the default of whatever uses are in the district works for. The residential districts, they only have residential uses listed. So that's fine. That you can only have a PUD that uses those residential uses, which is what those districts want. The village residential commercial has both residential and commercial. That's the default. Do we want to make any special callouts, or do we want to allow any kind of PUD in the village commercial, residential commercial district? I'm assuming that we're okay if it's either all residential, partially commercial and residential, or all commercial. That would be the default, that would not need a call out. So the call outs that we have already are the ones in black. The village commercial, the commercial, and the industrial commercial want at least 50% of the building floor area should be restricted to commercial use. That does not say it has to be on the first floor or the second floor or where it is. It's just that half of the building essentially has to be in commercial use. So for those three districts, we have to decide, is that what we want? Or do we want to, you know, if we're trying to preserve commercial space, is that the way we want to say it? Or do we want the call out to say, like on the first floor, you have to have commercial? And then we can talk to the people on Railroad Street and see if they want that there, or if they would like to have the option of having a PUD that is completely residential. So that's what we've got right now, but we can talk to them about it. Ian.
Sorry, I was on mute. Bridge Street is VC, right?
Bridge Street is,
Portion of it.
yeah, the upper block is VD, the village downtown district is
Oh,
VD.
okay.
And then lower down, it's the residential commercial district. Railroad Street is the district that's village commercial.
Okay.
So in the VD district, we have the call out that residential uses shall be restricted to the second floor and above. That's
Yep.
like saying the first floor has to be commercial.
Right.
And we should try to write these all in the same kind of language so that we are talking about the same thing. So presumably we would like to keep that as a call out, that in the village downtown district, the upper block, we would like to keep those buildings commercial on the first floor, not put residences on the first floor. That seems like the minimum that we can do to try to preserve commercial space, is to at least say that. So, okay, where were we? So that's the village downtown district. Okay, here we go. In the JC district, we've talked about that. Our call out is only that 20% of the space on the directly facing Bridge Street. I think we want to keep that. That sounds like we've worked on that forever. So in the IC district, we have said that a PUD consisting only of residential uses shall be allowed only on the parcels that I have identified as supporting dwelling uses, residential uses. So I think we want to keep that because that's a recent thing that we did, and we were trying to preserve some amount of commercial space in the IC district. So, you
It's
know,
a special case, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a special case, and we have this special case section in our PUD where we put these little special requirements that we're talking about. In the HDR, we have a number of commercial uses allowed in that district as conditional uses, but we have said that the only PUDs that are allowed are ones with residential uses entirely. So that would have to be a call out. The way that that district, which we haven't looked at recently, but the way that district is set up with all those commercial uses that they have, if we want to make it like the VRNN and the VRNS and have only PUDs with residential uses, that we would have to make that a call out. That's a question that we'll have to talk about. Do we want that? You know, what do we want there? What's the end result there for that district? We haven't really considered that district and how it's called the high density residential district. It isn't really high density anymore compared to the other parts of the village. So we have a bunch of work to do on that district anyway. And then we have the big AR district. We have many commercial uses in the AR district, but this is another one like the HDR. PUDs with commercial uses are prohibited. Do we want that? Do we want to restrict the whole of the AR to only residential, only PUDs with residential uses? That is something that we should talk about. And as far as I can see, this number of things that you see in front of you are the only things that need to have special call-outs. The other districts, the default works for them that any use that's in the district can be put into a PUD. Ian.
If somebody had property in the AR, let's say that this call out is put into action, and then somebody has property in that district and they want to do a residential or a commercial, wait, what is that? And
Yeah.
they want to do a commercial PUD.
Yeah.
Would they have to go through the same process that Buttermilk did to get a zoning change, or is it something that they would be able to run through the DRB?
Well, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, I think they would have to get a zoning change if this is what we put in
Yeah.
about the AR district. This is what's already in the AR district.
Right.
Yeah,
So
you-
if we leave that in there, then you couldn't make a PUD that had commercial uses in it.
Well, historically, you haven't had like a, a train of developers trying to do this kind of thing.
No, I mean, but there are some parcels within the AR that do have a commercial use attached to them, and I mean, there are some cottage industries that are part of it. I'm looking at the use table now. You can see a kennel. I would consider that commercial. Professional offices up to 2,500 square feet are allowed in the district. A museum is allowed in the district. But to answer your question specifically about if that use that they wanted that was commercial was not in the table, they would have to go before the DRB for a use variance. And those are just exceedingly difficult to meet the to get over the top on those, to be honest with you. But there is a process in place for them.
Yeah, and most likely the ones that already exist are pre-existing of the PUD section anyway. You know, they may have been there for longer than that, or they may have gotten through somehow, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
there are business yards. There are business yards. I mean, up your way, Ian. I mean, there's one up on right above Mary Hoole's property, right adjacent to it.
Yep, there's one on Hillview,
Yeah.
just about opposite my house, which is a business yard. You know, it has lots of trucks and gravel piles and all that kind of thing. I don't know that that was ever permitted.
Right.
It's old. It's from way back, when you could get the select board to dig you a pond just if you asked them and you knew the right people.
Good old days.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think that's something that we should consider. Do we really want that? That's in there right now, is that you can only have residential uses in a PUD in the AR. I'm not sure that we really want that. We may want to think about some other call out. Maybe what kind of uses? I mean, I think we could fix it up any way that we want, as long as we make the district and the PUD section say the same thing. So I think those are discussions that we need to have about these few districts that are in question. But I would like to get some agreement on the fact that we're just going to have one thing. It's a PUD. We're not going to have a thing called a residential PUD. And we're going to talk about the uses that might be in there.
Seems like a good idea to me.
I think it would be simpler. I think it would help us to think about it. And
Yeah, it doesn't take away your versatility to make changes to the different districts at all.
right. You can,
And the review is the same. I mean, the requirements are already in place.
Yeah.
yeah. So I did make a draft of what the PUD section would look like if we did this. It removes references to a thing called a residential PUD. Basically, it just talks about PUDs. So whenever you see the term PUD, you would not have to wonder whether it included or didn't include a residential PUD, because the PUD includes all PUDs. It's just some have different uses. So we could work some more on that, and we could have these discussions like the village commercial discussion. We could have the discussion with the people who operate there. And the Round Church Corners complex, I would like to have a discussion with those folks. Heidi Borman, Peter Borman, the people, you know, down at the Stone Corral, the people who own those buildings, whether we could combine that district with the Railroad Street area to make one village commercial district, which has those two centers, but have been trying to incorporate the southern half of the village into the village. So I think that would be a discussion that we could have about which uses are going to be call-out uses or not. The AR district, the HDR, we haven't talked about those at all, so that could be part of that discussion. The mobile home park doesn't seem to allow PUDs. We could talk about that. There's some open land in the mobile home park. I don't know if we
Kind of a PUD to begin with, you know.
Right. I mean, there's room for there to be a building, for instance, that has only residences in it, a single building, if they wanted to branch out from the mobile home format. So I think those areas we will need to have a discussion about.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have anything else they want to say about this? Yeah, so another part that I put in here was for Keith, because there are some things that need more review in a PUD. For instance, if you change one tree to some other species of tree, as I understand it, you have to go before the DRB again. That probably doesn't make sense. So, and there isn't in the PUD section any provision for how amendments are to be thought about. So I will need help from Keith on this, but I'm thinking that we can have a similar like major and minor amendments, the same as we have for the site plan and conditional review for those processes. And we will have to define those. What is a minor amendment? What is a major amendment? Minor amendments can be done by the zoning administrator. Do you want to talk about that at all, Keith? I don't know if we've talked, we haven't really talked about that too much, but.
It's kind of an odd scenario. In order to get a PUD without a subdivision, you still need to follow the subdivision process, which is sketch, preliminary, and final. And sketch is you know, you're not obliged to do it. So basically, I would say to an applicant, you need to go through the preliminary and final. It just means 2 steps you have to go through. You don't have to follow the subdivision rules. You do a PUD review under conditional use review if there is no subdivision, which is the majority of PUDs. So that kicks in site plan review. It's not a separate application, but it is part of the review. So this whole review process is a little bit tricky, especially with the major and minor. I'd like to have some type of ability to not burden the DRB with minor issues such as, you know, potentially moving a driveway 20 feet from where it was, as long as the access is still what it was approved by the select board. The aforementioned landscaping has been a bugaboo for the last 3 years for the DRB. You know, there are other minor issues too, like potentially reducing light glare or something along those lines. I mean, like the list can go on and on. So, I mean, if you look at the major amendments, you know, obviously anything to a critical permit condition needs to go back to the DRB. I mean, that goes without saying. We have a current one right now that's going back off of Heinsberg Road at Wolf Lane. And this is perfect, the et cetera, that definitely needs to be filled in for sure. But so I mean, this is currently what's going on right now. Landscaping, revision of roads, We do want to conserve the land, so that's a big focus of the PUDs. And, you know, that would be a major amendment. I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole from an administrative point of view. So that's my 2 cents. I mean, I have to jump in deep. I haven't jumped in deep with this as far as process goes and review goes, but I'm looking forward to doing that in the coming months.
And I mean, associated with that, we could reformulate the way that the fact that it says, and this is because all PUDs, I guess, used to be subdivisions, but the fact that it's the way it's written is it says the PUD process has to follow the format as if it were a subdivision, but it isn't a subdivision. So, you know, that's awkward. Maybe we can just describe what the process is in the PUD section. Here's the process. The process is you have a preliminary and a final, or, you know,
Right.
whatever the process is. Let's not even mix it up with the subdivision regulations at all. I would love to do that because that has been confusing to people.
Unless obviously there is a subdivision. And if
Right.
you condominiumize it also, I mean, which to a certain extent is a subdivision.
If there's a subdivision, then that's another thing. You know, that's different. So there are PUDs with subdivisions and there are PUDs without subdivision. We still have not figured out why in several of the districts it allows you to have a PUD if there's no subdivision. But you can't have one if there is a subdivision. Why is that? We have not, I don't know, Chris, if you have any idea why that should have been written like that originally.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. So we're planning to get rid of that. We can either do a PUD or you can not do a PUD, and you can do one that is a subdivision or you can do one that isn't a subdivision. So if we can think of any examples where it's important that it only be one or the other, then we could put that in our special regulations
Yeah,
section.
I don't know why that is there, but I understand the process of that. If there is a subdivision in a PUD, obviously you're probably selling off portions of that PUD to other interests. But if you don't have a subdivision, that's under one interest. That's it. So that's really the way I look at that whole aspect of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, why would you say that you can't have a subdivision and be selling off? I mean, we should just have a process that you go through if it's going to be a PUD with subdivisions, because that is often the way it is, right?
Yep. And then all the remaining land is usually conserved and it's equally distributed amongst, you know, in a residential PUD specifically, amongst all the landowners. So
Yeah,
it is specific and site specific for sure.
okay. So if everybody's good with that, we will work on the language to that, you know, towards that kind of framework, get rid of all the references to residential PUDs. We'll have to look at all the districts and see where they need to be changed as well. So any other comments or questions? All right, so I'm assuming everybody's good with this plan.
Yeah.
We will proceed along with it. All right, so that's good. We can move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 5. And I have been trying to make half of the meeting about a planning topic and half of it about the town plan. So this is kind of fitting in with that. Since we recently had the second draft of the CCRPC's future land use, we thought we could talk about that and its relationship to our future land use map. So if you all remember, we made this fuzzy map for our future land use. We put in because we really didn't want it to be a parcel map. Which is-
Definitely not a parcel map.
It's not a parcel map. We just have the kind of general areas, you know, where we should be conserving land, where we should have more development. But as it turns out, it isn't a very good pathway to making any kind of ordinances. In other words, you can't work with this much in terms of having a definitive idea about what you want to see in any one place. So, given that fact, and the fact that our map, our future land use map, is going to be required by law to be compatible, is their word, with CCRPC's future land use map, which is very defined. I would like to suggest, and also talking with the people, the steering committee and this conservation working group, that we can use CCRPC's map as our map with some adjustments. So the steering committee would like to have the planning commission's buy-in on that. And, you know, we don't really, if we're going to have this all done for March, which is, we have to have it done by the end of the year, we don't have time to develop some whole new system of mapping.
Yeah.
And it may be that what CCRPC means by compatible, or what the state means by compatible, is the same. We don't know that. But at least if we start with a basis of their map, we have more of a chance of being considered to be compatible. So, does anyone have any questions about that basic premise? Do you want to stick with the fuzzy map? Do you want another map? Do you want the CCRPC map in some form? And I'll talk in a minute about what changes has been suggested that we make to this map. But basically, they're using these new designations that the state has told them to use and has defined. They have to use those definitions. So the dark green is conserved areas called rural conserved. The teal areas are called rural agriculture and forestry. And there's a lot of overlap in the definition of the conserved areas and the teal areas. And the third one is rural general, which are these beige areas, which all are developed pieces in the ag res. So basically what they're doing with their map relative to our map is they're taking our big AR district and they're saying there are really three kinds of land that we want to talk about in our AR district. We want to talk about the rural areas that are already built on, which are along the roadways, you can see. Then there are those big teal lots that are mostly not built on. They are mostly not fronting on roads. They are required to think about preserving that land, or the working lands, the natural lands. And then there are the dark green areas, which are conserved, and most of the dark green on their map is either actually conserved with easements or in current use. So it's like agriculture or forest land that is in the current use program with the state, which it's expensive to get out of. So it likely means most of those pieces are going to stay in that. But I think this is a useful map for us, because now we can talk about our big AR district with specific kinds of land use. You know, up until now, it's been 1 acre zoning, this whole AR district. Is that really what we want? You know, not if we're going to be preserving 30% of the land by 2030. We're going to have some that is more conserved than other pieces. If we want to try to talk about preserving some agricultural and forestry working lands, now we have a better grip on where they are. That pale colored parcel in the center is the Cochrane ski area, which has been given the designation of a resource-based recreation area. So it has some features of conserving the land and some features of allowing for activities that will allow it to continue as a viable business. So that's a sort of a special piece. We also have the floodplain in cross-hatching and the major streams, the known streams. There's the Johnny Brook, the Snipe Island Brook, the Huntington River, and that other brook that I have not been able to find its name that enters into the Huntington River down near the bottom of this map, which took out
this one here,
took out Hillview. Yeah, I don't know what the name of that. I can't find out.
isn't it unnamed? I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, but it took out that major washout on Hillview at the bottom of Hillview, so which now has a giant culvert in it. So, and those are conserved because you're not allowed to do any building in those places. So that's the basic concept, is to use their map and make what changes we feel are correct that they have not made with our knowledge of the on-the-ground land. For instance, working with the Conservation Commission, the Richmond Land Trust, and the AFC, there are pieces that they have not marked as actually being conserved, which are conserved, that the Land Trust knows about because they hold the easement. So there are some parcels that we are gradually identifying that should be in the dark green color because they are actually conserved pieces of land. And I think what the steering committee is going to want to do with those is we're going to tell CCRPC about them. Whether they change their map at this point or not, we don't know whether they will change it. Even if we have proof that these are conserved pieces of land, there are other pieces that are so steep, they're really unbuildable, and they should be in the dark green also. But what I think that we should do, and some corroboration with that, is to make our map correct based on what we know on the ground. It will still be compatible. So if we take, for instance, a couple of the teal lots, and we find they are conserved under conserved easements, on our map, we will make them dark green. Now, they're compatible in that the definitions between teal and green are very overlapping anyway. The boundaries will be the same, but we are going to say our on-the-ground research shows that these should be in the dark green. If you don't change it now on your map, well, that's fine. You can, you know, your map, their regional map has to reflect the municipal maps as well as reflecting what the state is telling them to do. So eventually they will change their map, I believe, even if they don't right now. And I'm hoping that they will consider that compatible. The other major change that I would like to see is if you make bigger this map, Keith, and look at the higher density area. Yeah, bigger, you can cut out everything except for the village. Yeah, okay. So what they have done in Richmond Village is they've made what's called the village center. That's one category they have. That is the purple, kind of. And that consists of our downtown, our village downtown, some of our village commercial, some of our residential commercial within the center of town. That's fine. They're calling that the village center. The lighter purple color, the pinkish purple color, is the village neighborhood north up there. This is Lemeroy Court down here, sandwiched in with the dark purple, yep, and Pleasant Street. And then to the south of the river, our village residential neighborhood south. They would like to call those planned growth areas. We know that we've already had a lot of pushback from people who do not want to call those planned growth areas. And as we read the definitions, they also fit into this category called village area, which is listed on the legend for this map, but there are no village areas shown in Richmond. It's only the town center surrounded by planned growth areas. So what I am suggesting that we do is on our map, we do not call those planned growth areas, we call them village areas. The definitions are very similar of planned growth and village areas. I feel it would be a lot easier to sell to the public when we're getting people to vote on this plan if we did not call them planned growth areas, but we called them village areas outside the village center.
That is a perception issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that the select board voted to use the tier 1B designation is fine. It still works for village areas. The tier 1B designation is for the downtowns and for planned growth areas and village areas. So, Ian.
Does CCRPC designate something as a growth area for a reason?
Well, it's hard to see why they do it, why they want to call them planned. They're being encouraged, I think, to make towns have planned growth areas because they want housing growth. You know, they're being instructed to want housing growth, or maybe they want housing growth or whatever, you know, everybody wants housing growth. So I think that is why they call them planned growth areas.
There's not like tax incentive program or anything tied to building in those zones or?
Not as far as we can tell from the definitions. Now, I guess we should find that out. We should find out if there are any, you know, mostly they put them together in the category with village areas, which are like areas in the village that are still walkable to the downtown. That's what village areas are. And planned growth areas are kind of the same. There's room for infill development is mentioned in both categories. So they're often mentioned together. Why you would want to call it one and not the other, I don't know, only because they want people to think that they're encouraging planned growth.
Yeah,
And-
I don't think there are any real sweeteners with, you know, the designation of these areas regardless, Ian, to be honest with you. That's
Okay.
what tier 1B does for you,
Yep.
at least not yet.
Right. I mean, and one of the questions that people have is what happens in the future based on this regional map? And if it's different from our map, you know, what is going to happen in the future? Are they going to make regulations that are specific to their map? Well, we don't know that. There's nothing yet that says anything like it. This is not a zoning map. Their map doesn't really rule, although they have to approve our map as being compatible with their map. So you know, at some point, we'll have to have a discussion with CCRPC about this and about the fact that we're going to make a map for our future land use, for our town plan that is compatible, that we feel is compatible, but it is not the same. It is not exactly the same. So that's what I hope to sell.
So I guess the question is, this map or this map?
Yeah. I don't think our fuzzy map has helped us really. It hasn't helped to bring any clarity to what we're talking about, the areas that we're talking about. And the state is certainly moving in the direction of having it be very specific, although the way that CCRPC has arrived at its designations is a little muddy. In other words, are they using some of ANR's maps, like highest priority forest blocks, or are they just going on current use and conservation to make those definitions? This is a little unclear also, and we haven't been able to get them to say exactly. It looks to us like it's a mashup of several different ways of looking at the situation.
And I will say that, I mean, the ability to respond to it has certainly been truncated. It is not an extended review period for the towns. And we are at 2.0 now, and I think that's why this working group is working hard on this. That's my 2 cents. I mean, this served its purpose though, right? Virginia
Yeah.
talked about that a bit back in 2018. It served its purpose, and I think that purpose has run.
Yeah, I think we've segued kind of from this purpose into a more defined kind of map that is actually going to help us to think about our big AR district and what we want. You know, if we want to save any land like the northeast quadrant there, you know, we're going to have some special requirements about it, about what you can do with development. You're not going to be able to develop just anywhere you want. You're going to have to develop near the road, clustered housing. These have all been in the smart growth lexicon for years. You know, you got to build near the road. You have to cluster your housing. You can have short roads into the interior, but if you want to save highest priority ecosystems, you're not going to be able to just go anywhere and build anything. So I think we need to consider that, and I think this map is going to help us better to do that than our fuzzy map.
Yep.
And this is not a zoning map, and you can, you know, you look at some parcels and half of them is dark green and half of them is teal. And that's where some of the ANR maps come in. You know, if you have a prime forest block that takes up like the lots there on Snipe Ireland Road, yeah, right there, you can see that along the road is where the houses are, and the back part of all that lot is in dark green. So
Yeah.
from a zoning point of view, that's not going to work too well. That's going to be hard to know how to deal with that. But at least it points us in some kind of direction. We're using the science. There's been a lot of mapping that's been done for all these conservation purposes, and we're trying to maintain a healthy ecosystem for the whole state.
Yeah.
So we're going to take this question also, Ian, when we meet at our next steering committee meeting, to make sure that everybody is okay with it there. I kind of think they will be. It's a more kind of scientific and accurate map than the other one was, which was an artistic interpretation of a map. And then we just have to, you know, work out if we're making any changes, they're obviously going to need some kind of firm rationale. So if a lot is teal and it has an actual conservation easement on it, then that's a good rationale for it to become dark green. How much change they're going to make in their map, I don't know, but we can make it in ours. So,
Yeah.
any other thoughts about this question? It will be good for us to work on the AR district.
Yes.
So that has not really been attended to. I mean, we didn't even really bring it up to date for the 2018 plan. So we just haven't gotten to it yet, but hopefully we will this time around. All right, so if people have any more thoughts about it, just tell us, and you know, otherwise we're going to go on along this pathway. The report from the steering committee is that we're now taking the outreach work and changing, rewriting the or updating the sections that each one of the steering committee members has assigned. And so we are making, well, so I have been working on this section, the energy section and the introduction, and I am making red line copies as was requested of the existing. And the fallback is if you don't have new data, if you don't have new outreach information, you're going to use what is there already. So much will be the same and some things will change and be updated. So Ian, you want to say anything else about how that is going?
I guess in our last meeting, we talked a little bit about whether or not our outreach has been effective or reached as many people as we want to, and there's like mixed reviews on that with different members of the committee. I think we were feeling at the end of the conversation like we'll probably do a little bit more outreach, but I think with limited time and resources, we're going to focus more on trying to get the sections, some drafts done of the sections and make those available to the public, and that might generate some more engagement from people when they see what's going to be changing in the plan. And I think that was kind of the gist of the last meeting. Like it's kind of time for us to kind of get some of these drafts written up and aired to the public or to some of the other stakeholders that might not agree with everything they're seeing. So
Yeah, and if we can get a draft out there, I think that we will be able to have some other events, you know, or outreach opportunities. I don't know how much overall interest there is in this particular work.
Yep.
And at our next meeting that's coming up next week, we're going to talk about the survey results that have been online that have been, you know, moderately well responded to. So try to put that into our updating work.
Yep.
So more on that to come.
Yep. We did talk a little bit about, I mean, there was kind of a lively conversation about, you know, trying to do planning into an environment where we aren't sure where the money is going to be coming from that we're used to getting from the state or the federal government too. And I think that's going to be, or I think that should be a priority for all of the committees in town to be thinking about and talking about. And I don't know if we're the ones to, as being a planning commission and thinking about the future, if we should be incorporating that into the town plan or doing something to kind of drive that type of thinking into the decision making that's happening on a host of different subjects. I'm sure the select board probably, you know, they're well aware of all these things and thinking about it, but I don't know.
Well, I have added that into the introduction as a new,
Oh.
that we're entering a new phase, and there are several things that are different about it. One is that we have a lot of state laws, new laws that the state legislature has become more interested in municipal planning. There are laws that directly affect us and ones that indirectly affect us. And also, as of 2025, we're entering a period when we have very uncertain federal funding. So for the next 3 years anyway, probably, unless something changes, which is half the life of this plan. And so, we'll want to take that into consideration. We may have goals for ourselves that we are not going to be able to fulfill, but, we'll keep the goals and work with whatever money we can find. So, yeah, that is a factor. And another factor is that we're going to have these increased flooding events. So we really need to take that into consideration in many of these different sections, is that, we're going to have to become resilient with our transportation infrastructure. We're trying to harden it with bigger culverts and different ditches, and with our community development systems, we're going to have better coordination of the flood relief. So that's kind of across the board going into all the sections.
Okay. That was worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions about that, about what's going on? The steering committee does have minutes if anybody wants to look at them about our meetings. And another thing we talked about doing is having events we're supposed to be having meaningful outreach to underserved communities, but we've been having trouble figuring out what that means exactly and what our underserved communities are and how we can possibly reach them, since we don't know exactly what they are. So we don't have any really traditional underserved communities that we know about, like people who don't speak English as a first language. There are probably some in Richmond, but they're not in a community that we know of. Indigenous people or BIPOC communities, we don't know of those. So, and we don't know exactly what we would do to be sure that environmental justice policies are being served. That whole question has been difficult for us, and we haven't really come up with anything. I don't know, Chris, if you have any information about or thoughts about that.
Well, I certainly have opinions. I mean, in Richmond, underserved communities have been pretty much defined economically. And we do have underserved neighborhoods in Richmond that are defined by lower incomes, and particularly Riverview Commons is one that is regularly overlooked, and pretty much everything that happens in town. And the last time around that we did the planning process, we did specific outreach to Riverview Commons, had events on site there, invited people to come, had pretty good turnout, had great conversations with people about what they would like to see, and brought that back into the town plan process. So, I don't, I'm not saying that I think that is enough necessarily, but it's an obvious underserved community that I think it would be a shame not to reach out to.
We did have a fairly impassioned stream of thought from one of our steering committee members about it with economically underserved, if you want to call that, communities, with stigmatizing them by saying, okay, we think you people are low income, and so we're reaching out to you especially.
But
So,
why would you do that? I mean, we didn't do that last time. We just reached out to them. We didn't say, "Oh, we're coming to you because you
right,
don't
right.
have
Well,
money."
the feeling was that it was implied if you were,
I
so,
mean, I think
I
it's
don't know.
more, to me, it's more the point of I know where the borders of Richmond are. We all do. Why, if there's a dense neighborhood of people, why wouldn't you go to it? And Riverview Commons is a dense neighborhood of people
Mm-hmm.
who are poorly served by transportation, and it just makes sense to bring the process to them rather than forcing them to come to the process. If we're going to go into the neighborhoods and talk to people, that's a neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we ended up deciding that we'll have this draft and then we can take that around
Yeah.
and shop it around. At least it'll be something that's already written and people can react to what has been changed from the last time around. So
Yeah.
that's as far as we've gotten with that anyway.
Mhm.
I think that it is true that other than Review Commons, I'm not sure there are other sort of neighborhoods geographically that are defined geographically that also define um, underserved communities necessarily. I mean, low-income folks, or any other designation to be sprinkled throughout the community, at least as far as I'm aware.
Mm. And I know that there are quite a number of people who aren't low income who live in Riverview Commons.
Sure,
They
sure.
are downsizers. They're mostly like people who have resources who have downsized to Riverview Commons. So, if we can think of it just as a neighborhood, I think that we would feel
Better.
better about it than thinking
Yeah.
of it as an underserved somehow community. I don't know. Anyway, I
Well,
hear
I
what you're
mean, I think
saying, so it's fine. It's good.
I think that's totally appropriate, for the planning process. And I forget how many people live there now, but it's over 100,
So I think they have
so
160
yeah.
residences.
So it's not a small neighborhood.
No,
Right.
it was that big.
Yeah. And we've also talked about Jonesville, which, when we talk about Jonesville, it's like Jonesville. What about Jonesville? And they have the CCRPC map has that as a hamlet. This is their term for it, a hamlet. But most of the people who think of themselves, I think, as residents of Jonesville live out
Yes.
far. They live on West Whitehill, or they live on Stage Road, or they live down on Dugway Road or Phoenix Circle. I mean, all of those neighborhoods. I don't know, Chris, do you live on West Whitehill?
Yes, they do.
Do you think of yourself as a Jonesville resident?
That's a good question. Uh, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. There is a Jonesville
Yeah.
post office and a Jonesville zip code,
Right,
which I do not have, even though I live a quarter mile from the post office.
right.
And it seems to me also that in terms of just issues, it's really split by the river, so if there's the folks that live on my side of the river, which if you were to ask folks, particularly at the bottom of West White Hill, what the main problem is, and it's access to the river for recreation and the issues of people coming from outside the neighborhood
Yeah.
and parking and that sort of perennial thing. On the other side of the river, there's more, it's more prone to flooding, and I would guess that those folks would say that that's the main issue. During Irene, they got clobbered
Right.
over
Both
there.
Snipe Ireland and Stage Road were destroyed.
Well, I'm not even talking that far away from the
Oh, yeah.
flat. I'm
In
just
the
talking,
in the Route 2 area, which
yeah,
a lot of
because
it is in the floodplain. But
there are more houses there than you think.
Right.
You know, if you go back in that are in the floodplain in the Route 2 area right there.
yeah,
Duxbury also.
And then there's Duxbury, yeah. Yeah,
so
between, right, because you're right, pretty much right on the border there. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so far, because we haven't been able to think of what else to do, we have left the CCRPC designation of this as a hamlet, which is like a little historic center, which it was. The historic part is right. There was a historic center with some businesses and a post office and so on there and some houses. Whether they have special needs that we should be taking our draft to is another question. I mean, it sounds like there's a diverse bunch of people. And, a lot of people just use Richmond as their village because they always go through Richmond because they're coming from
Yeah.
Burlington or Essex or Williston or wherever they're coming from.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, I think Jonesville, I assume it had some kind of retail at some point, some kind of general store. That was gone long before I moved there. And the schoolhouse was converted to a residence long before I moved there. So really the only, centering institution is the post office. And frankly, its hours have been so truncated
yeah,
at
it's
this
like
point.
open 2 hours a week or something,
Yeah, I actually have a PO box there, and I have to be on top of that so that I can get in and get my mail when it's open.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, if anyone, I mean, the planning commission at some point will need to think about it because we have this as a commercial district.
right.
Whether it really warrants being a commercial district, I mean, there are some businesses there,
There are.
but is it a commercial district? Should it be a residential commercial district? The way they have the hamlet line drawn, it includes the residences that are in the Route 2 area as well as the businesses. So,
Yeah, and I would say
Yeah.
that, I mean, I've also had inquiries into ADUs on some of the existing residential lots in that area too, off of Route 2, and we can't permit it.
Oh, really? Because
Well,
it's
it's in the floodplain, has a lot
oh,
to
right.
do with it too. Even out of the
Right.
floodplain, it's not a use, there's no dwellings allowed there, even though there's a single family, I think there's a single family dwelling, and I would be required to allow that. Per statute is my understanding. It was just never pursued, and it seemed a little odd when talking about that with Tyler also, how it was just very odd with the flood hazard overlay district and where they wanted to put everything. So this is just one case though. I'm just bringing that up. So
yeah, but I mean, it would be worth our while thinking about, should it be a residential commercial district, if you want to call it that?
Right.
Should you not just leave it strictly a commercial district because it may or may not be a strictly commercial district. So,
And I certainly can't claim to speak for all my neighbors, and I think they probably have diversity of opinions on that. But I think the way that it is being used now it's certainly not a vibrant commercial district.
right.
yeah, Precision Motorsports. I mean, they're there, but that's really
Yeah.
the only real vibrant. I think it's Precision. So anyway,
Well, the motorcycle place, I think, is shut down pretty much. There's there's the garage, there's the the auto shop,
The
and
Ukraine boutique, there
yeah,
are some other businesses that may or may not actually be
I'm
there.
never sure whether they're going concerns or not.
No, or whether they're legally or permitted or anything, or,
Yeah,
they're
that too.
just using these spaces. So anyway, Unless anybody wants to do anything different, we're gonna leave it as a hamlet.
Yeah.
And, you know, the neighborhoods are just up the roads. They're part of the AR district that is along the roadways, so it's rural general, which is residences with a rural look to the whole thing. So,
Mhm.
all right, well,
We do need to talk about the next meeting. and
we
that
can
should-
talk about the next meeting, and we could also mention that if you noticed in the packet, this letter came from CCRPC dated July 3rd. And I did ask Keith if he just got it or if he got it on July 3rd and was just sitting on it, but he said he just got it. Summarizing CCRPC's outreach efforts, and there's some mistakes in there, but oh well, you know.
Yeah.
We're working with a new planner, and so it's
Yeah, and I went
difficult.
back and I checked my emails prior to the meeting to make sure I didn't get it, and it's nowhere. So, I
Yeah.
received it when we got the 2.0 on the flu maps, the second iteration. That's when that was attached to it.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
So presumably for transparency, she was told that she had to summarize the interactions that she had had in Richmond. So there's that. All right, and then there's the question of the next meeting, which is the 20th of August. And Keith will be in foreign lands. Lucky for him. I will be on vacation, but I could attend the meeting. Zoom the meeting. Do people want to have a meeting? Do we want to just work on some of these things? I mean, you know, I can work further on the PUD language situation, and Ian and I are both going to be working on the town plan stuff. So I don't know how everybody feels about just not having a meeting on the 20th. Or do people want to talk about something in particular on that date? Allison, what do you think?
I was about to raise my hand and
Okay.
say, Virginia,
Yeah.
you deserve a vacation. And I am right now very embroiled in the swimming business,
Right,
which got off to a late start because
right.
of weather.
And
Yes,
your water quality.
yes, we finally conquered that.
Good.
And discovered, and I'm perfectly happy to share this information with other people in town, that what was a trouble with the water was that the pH had changed. For 15 years, I've used sodium bicarb to get the pH right so that the pool would clean up. This year, when I did that, the pool got worse.
Mm.
And it turned out that there's a lot of particles and acid rain coming down all over here. It starts in New York State, about near Niagara Falls, and it just comes right up that throughway across the lake and goes all the way through up to through Maine. And that is why we are having some of these difficult breathing problems.
Right.
Yeah, it's so finally, I I guess what I can say is sometimes 90% of solving a problem is identifying the problem.
Yes, agreed. Well, we're still thinking about the pool party question. So it will have to be in September probably if we have a pool party.
Well,
So
I'm
maybe
having-
the underserved community is those who don't get to swim very often. I don't know. That seems kind of like an underserved community.
well, I think, I'm very happy to share the pool with people. I'm really pleased that there were some people who were very patient while I struggled with trying to get the water right. And now that it finally is, people are, they're starting to come, and
And yeah,
I'm having many people in my family have Leo birthdays. One of them is me. A day after tomorrow is my birthday.
oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. And there are a lot of other Leos in our family, so we're having a Leo party
Oh, good.
this weekend. And so the pool is available. All people have to do is just give me a call.
Hmm.
I
Right.
wasn't planning on using this planning commission meeting
Do
as
you-
an opportunity to advertise my pool.
Do you usually swim through September? I mean, is it swimmable usually through September?
It depends.
Okay, on the weather.
I don't know what to make out of this year.
Okay.
I
All right.
really don't. I generally, it cuts down an awful lot as soon as school starts.
Right. Yeah. Well, if we had a town plan thing, it wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't need the kids, or we could have the kids, but it would be the weekend or something. So how do you feel about the meeting on the 20th? Would you be okay not having one?
I would, but yeah, I guess I'm okay either way.
Okay.
I'm kind of frantically busy this week.
Right. No.
Yeah,
In
well,
2
maybe
weeks.
should we just see what comes up, or do you want to just say, okay, we're not having a meeting on the 20th?
Well, let me see how other people feel. Ian, how do you feel about it?
I don't think anything's gonna present itself between now and then that's gonna require us to have a meeting.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So you're okay just going ahead working on your town plan stuff, hopefully. Yep. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I'm actually going to take myself out of that boat because I need to let you all know that I'm resigning from the Planning Commission.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah, am finding myself with not enough time to cover all the bases. Actually, that's been going on for some time, and no longer feel like I can do a good job here. It's been 6 years since I joined the Planning Commission, and I need to take a bit of a break and reallocate my efforts. So yeah, I think you'll
That's
have
too
to.
bad.
Yeah,
I'm
really.
Oh,
disappointed.
thank you, appreciate
It
that.
is too bad.
But yeah, so I won't be at the next meeting. So
Okay. Or any of the subsequent meetings, I take it.
well, I may come for other reasons, but
Okay.
not as a member.
Okay. Well, thank you for hanging in there for this amount of time.
Yes.
Anyway.
No, I think, Chris, you've been a
God
big
bless
help.
you.
You've made a lot of contributions and had some very important ideas. So we thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, what do you think?
I'm good with taking the 20th off.
Okay, that sounds good. I think
I
we
didn't even
should
know you were here.
Yeah.
Been a low profile tonight.
Yeah.
low profile. Yep, hope you had a good dinner.
I did.
Okay, so let's cancel the meeting on the 20th, and we will go on working on the things that we're working on. And then we
So
can,
attendance is gonna be crucial going forward, right?
attendance will be crucial.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be you and me and Mark and Allison and Rebecca
Oh, Rebecca, that's right.
comes, but we'll have to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Put a blast out for more members. We need to.
Yeah, yep. We definitely need to seek some more members. So we're talking about the 3rd of September.
Okay.
And I could try to get Dan Noyes, for instance, and some of those people to come to that meeting, if that would work for people, to talk about whether they, how they feel about residential uses in their district.
Mhm.
Is that okay with people?
Sure.
Okay. All right, that'll give us plenty of time to get that arranged.
Hey, Keith, since I've got you here, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
What does it take to get parking prohibited in a part of town?
Parking prohibited in part of town. Is it in a town right of way?
It's on a town road.
Is it by the Cumberland Farms?
No,
Oh. It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
You know, if the select board has the ability to do that, then I imagine that there is some type of way to go about that.
it's a select board issue
I
generally.
would think, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's in a town right away, it would be, yes.
So that any town road is a town right of way.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's the traveled portion and then there's the rest of the right of way. So in some places, you know, they say you can park, but you can't be on the traveled portion. You can only
Right.
be off the traveled portion, still within the right of way.
But it's within the select board's jurisdiction is the point, I think.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you for the info.
All right. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Do I
Second.
hear a
Chris,
second?
you got it, you got it.
All right.
Beat you to it, Chris.
Take care, Chris. It's been
Yeah,
good
he's-
working with you.
Thank you.
He's taking over your job of adjourning the meeting on time. That's good.
Passing the torch.
Yep. All right. Does anybody not want to adjourn? Okay. So we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll go on working at trying to get some more members.
Night.
Right?
Goodbye, everybody.
Yep. Bye-bye. Good
Good
night.
night.
Take
Good
care.
night, everybody.